I want to give a special shout out to all my patrons, my Bibliospran, Bibliohowlers, and Bibliomancers. Thank you so much for supporting my hobby and passion even more. It means so much to me. Hi everyone, Petrik here. Today's video will be a book review for The Sons of Darkness by Gourav Mohanty. I will just say it right off the bat, I think that this will become the best fantasy debut of 2022, for me anyway. So this book, it is Mahabharata infused with A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin, the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, and also Malazan, Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson. I need to first mention this. Since I finished The Wisdom of Crowds by Joe Abercrombie last September, I haven't read any grimdark fantasy novel since then. It has been hard for me to put myself back into the grimdark subgenre, not because I dislike grimdark or maybe The Wisdom of Crowds. It's the other way around. So grimdark is actually one of my favorite subgenre to read. Grimdark or dark fantasy, whatever you want to call it. And also, I love The Wisdom of Crowds so much. And because I loved it so much, it feels like I fell into a grimdark fantasy hangover. Since then, it seemed like I had no interest in reading grimdark fantasy or any book that certifies itself as grimdark until I saw the cover reveal and the interview for The Sons of Darkness by Gourav Mohanty. The super stunning cover art by Micaela Alcaino caught my attention, and everything the author said in his interview with Fantasy Book Critic finalized my decision to read this book. Sons of Darkness, the first Indian epic grimdark fantasy novel published in India, is the first installment in the Rag of Rita series. It is practically a smorgasbord of Mahabharata, A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin, The First Law by Joe Abercrombie, Malazan, Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson, and The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. All of this, except Mahabharata that I haven't read, are some of my favorite series or books of all time. And there is no way I am not reading this. And now that I have finished reading Sons of Darkness, I can vouch that this series' respective influences are embedded with justice. Mohanty deserves praise for his creativity in blending every one of them into one unforgettably stunning and distinct debut novel. And believe me, once you've read this novel, the hidden symbolism behind this cover art will shine through. Let's begin this review with a brilliant line from the novel. What do you call an angry sheep and an angry cow? Ba-moo. That quote should be enough to make you read this novel, right? No? Seriously? I love that kind of joke. Well, alright, I will begin this review with a quote from the prologue instead. For a hero of light, he reckoned he cast a rather grim shadow. Hero, the word slithered nastily in his mind. An honor bestowed upon you when you had killed all those who would have called you a mass murderer. And this is the main premise for The Sons of Darkness. Some ballads are ink in blood. Bled dry by violent confrontations with the Magadhan Empire, the Mathuran Republic simmers on the brink of oblivion. The Republic's leaders, Krishna and Satyabhama, have put their plans in motion within and beyond its blood-soaked borders to protect it from annihilation. But they will soon discover that neither gold nor alliances last forever. They are, however, not the only players in this game. Mati, Pirate Princess of Kalinga, must mend her ways if she is to be a good wife. But old habits die hard, especially when one habitually uses murder to settle scores. Karna, the gifted son of a low-born charioteer, hopes to bury his brutal past, but finds that life is not generous in offering second chances. The crippled hero turned torturer, Shakuni, struggles in the maze of daggers, that is politics, leaving little time for him to plot the revenge he craves. Alongside a cast of sinister queens, naive kings, pious assassins, and predatory priests, these dubious heroes will converge where the Sons of Darkness is prophesied to rise and break the world, even as forgotten gods prepare to play their hand. I think the blurb did a great job in telling the premise without going into spoiler territory. As for this review, let me begin by saying that Sons of Darkness has one of the best prologues I've read in fantasy. I have always found myself dumbfounded by the argument that prologues shouldn't exist anymore in the fantasy genre. That is insane. I disagree with that immensely. A prologue in a fantasy novel can do many things, one of the most important thing being the chance to give readers something incredible to look forward to. This is what Mohanty did in his 16 pages prologue in Sons of Darkness. It was brutal, it immediately exhibited the darkness of the story, and I knew Munchuk-Un's story and the elements introduced in this prologue will come back to enhance the narrative later, and it did. It bloody did. With the sprawling scope of the series and the many varying casts of characters, Mohanty is burdened with the challenge that many epic fantasy authors encounter. to write a compelling slow burn first half before exploding the narrative into an unstoppable, thrilling reading experience in the second half. This is normal in a sprawling epic fantasy like A Song of Ice and Fire and many more. Personally, I tend to love a relatively slow-paced narrative, especially in the early section of the first volume of an epic fantasy series. Mohanty needed to introduce the characters and the world building of Sons of Darkness to make the readers invested in their journey and the world first. And from my experience, that is what he precisely did in the first half of the novel. Your patience with the relatively slow section will be returned tenfold. Patience is a virtue. In Adhyaya, Sanskrit for chapter 1, Winter of Discord, Mohanty introduced and developed the pairing of Krishna and Satyabhama from Mathura, and also Shishupal from Magad. The characterizations for the characters in Sons of Darkness were superbly written. It was difficult for me to choose which character was my utmost favorite. I actually cannot choose just one, but I can certainly say that Satyabhama and her band of silver wolves, Storm and Rain, were my favorites of the wolves, were some of my favorite characters in Sons of Darkness. Their unflinching bravery, loyalty, and their admirable determination to fight against prejudice and control their own destiny as women were nothing short of inspiring. I mean, due to the sprawling narrative, Satyabhama didn't even appear again after Adhyaya 1 for approximately 50% of the book. However, I guarantee you this. Once you're done with the book, Satyabhama and the Silver Wolves will become some of your favorite characters. Their presence was irreplaceable. In Adhyaya 2, All That Glitters, Mohanty focused the plot on Mati from Kalinga and Karna from Hastina. Karna was a character I felt a bit lukewarm at first, but this opinion instantly vanished after I read the first out of 2 sets of Convergence chapters, Swayamvar Part 1 and Swayamvar Part 2, which I will talk about soon. Mati did not have much of an appearance in Sons of Darkness, but Karna somehow transformed into one of my favorite characters in the book, just like Satyabhama and the Silver Wolves I just talked about. Karna earns so much of my empathy. Though kind-hearted and mighty with his bow, he's so often ridiculed, hated, and prejudiced simply due to his birth. As I said, being patient is so worth it with this novel. Once you reach the Convergence chapters, you will reap the first sequence of rewards. The geopolitical dramas in Sons of Darkness were evidently inspired by A Song of Ice and Fire, but the first and the most dominant evidence of the first law inspiration can be seen in the Master of Spies from Hastina, Shakuni, and the name of the chapter that he appeared, which is Adhyaya 3, Best Served Cold. Shakuni is a former tortured prisoner of war that turned into a crippled torturer. Yes, you're right, Shakuni is undoubtedly Glokta inspired. Initially, I was taken aback by how similar they were. However, after researching Shakuni's background in Mahabharata, I think it is smart to emulate Glokta's style of inner monologues for this character. And as I progress further into the book, fortunately their story turned out more and more differently. I love how the author included his main inspirations to Sons of Darkness clearly, and still, he successfully transformed the novel into something that is definitely his own. For example, take a look at the next quote I'm going to show you. It is said that the greatest gift the gods can give you is to forget about you. And Shishupal wanted nothing more than to spend his life unnoticed by the gods. A life unnoticed by the gods is boring and unimaginative, but a happy and a long one, and he worked hard to make his life precisely thus. If you have read the prologue in Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson, then you will know that this quote pretty much inspired from there. And speaking of inspirations, it is time to talk about the main highlights of the Sons of Darkness. Exactly, it is time to discuss the epic convergence chapters in the Swayamvar and also the Battle of Mathura. The Swayamvar Part 1 and the Swayamvar Part 2 takes place halfway into the book. This is the first instance of Mohanty's incredible action sequence, but have no fear, it shall not be the last. This storytelling structure of including 2 big epic convergence sequence reminded me of reading a book in Malazan Book of the Fallen. A good example of this is Memories of Ice by Steven Erikson, the 3rd book in Malazan Book of the Fallen. In Memories of Ice, we have the Siege of Kapustan and also the Siege of Coral in one book. And the Battle of Mathura are what we readers get here. And the results were absolutely pulse-pounding. I thought the weapon of precise chaos unleashed in the Swayamvar were going to be the peak of the novel. I am gratified to be proven wrong by this. Remember this as you read this book. If you love the Swayamvar chapters, the Battle of Mathura will blow your mind away. It definitely did for me. War is coming with merciless malice. Everyone involved in the war has to stop being a lamb and be a wolf instead. As I made this review, I am still not over the intense carnage I read in the Battle of Mathura. And just like the other past battle scenes I've read, I don't think I will ever be over it. It was unquestionably one of the best war sequences I've read in fantasy. With glimpses of the heroes by Joe Abercrombie in its battle structure, the memorable duel and the battle frenzy in the climax sequence of Sons of Darkness should deservedly be entered into the Hall of Fame of some of the best battles in fantasy. Seriously, reading the powerfully inspiring battle spirits, the massive detonation of the bellower, similar to Morant munitions in Malazan Book of the Fallen, and the relentless symphony of blood songs in the Battle of Mathura was all consumingly immersive. Due to the ever-growing quantity of fantasy books that I read, it's getting harder and harder for me to feel completely riveted in a battle sequence or war sequence in a fantasy novel, but trust me on this. Epic fantasy readers will want to witness this fiery conflagration of emotions. The Battle of Mathura is truly a breathtaking culmination to Sons of Darkness. Before I end this review, I need to mention a few important things. The author has forewarned this in the author's note in this book, but Sons of Darkness is an epic grimdark fantasy novel. This novel is certainly not for the faint of heart. The characters are morally grey, none of them are protagonists or antagonists. They are characters trying their best to survive and do what's best according to them. They do plenty of questionable actions. Although never endlessly bleak or depressing, brutal and violent scenes are evident in the text. Pretty much all the harrowing actions you can expect in a war. I have mentioned in this review constantly that this is an epic grimdark fantasy novel, but it is worth remembering that the story in Sons of Darkness, as shown in the colored map drawn by the author at the front of the book, takes place in ancient India. Mathura, Magadha, Hastina, Panchal, Kalinga, and more settings in this book exist in our world. It is more precise, probably, to call Sons of Darkness a historical, epic grimdark fantasy novel. Many words and terminologies such as Adhyaya, Swayamvar, Chakras, and Mandalas can be researched to enhance reading enjoyment. This counts deities and demigods in Indian mythology like Devas from Deva, Rakshasa, and mounts like Airavata and Garuda. I can't emphasize this highly enough. All of this, plus the inspirations implementation I explained earlier, and the manipulation of the Dark Prophecy, gave Sons of Darkness extra extensive reason why it should be read by historical or grimdark fantasy enthusiasts. With 7 key characters and plenty of well-written supporting characters in 206,000 words, there is a lot to unpack in Sons of Darkness. I highlighted so many quotes and I still left out so many amazing things in this novel within this review. You can't experience the full glory of this book through my or any review. You have to read this and experience it for yourself. But notice, the unbridged bastion for grimdark fantasy literature in India has been bridged with Mohanty as the lead. And now nothing can stop this novel from encompassing the world of fantasy genre. Some ballads are ink in blood, and the blood ink in Sons of Darkness has left a permanent mark in the fantasy genre. Valorously retelling Mahabharata by infusing elements and influence from some of the most magnificent epic grimdark fantasy series out there, has elevated Sons of Darkness into becoming the new scintillating hidden gem in epic grimdark fantasy. With engaging duel, an exceptional war sequence, lovable and hateable characters, heroic stunts, dark prophecies, meddling gods, and many more, Sons of Darkness is filled with all the makings of a tremendous epic grimdark fantasy. It has reignited my passion for reading grimdark fantasy again after a 1-year-long break. And to think that this is only the first installment, I and Chocoboy love being engrossed in this tale from ancient India, and we cannot wait to read the sequel, Dance of Shadows, as soon as possible. Until then, bravo Gourav Mohanty for this excellent debut. And one more thing, I want to say thank you so much to Gourav Mohanty and Lead Start for sending me a physical copy of this book to me, and for doing a great job in publishing Sons of Darkness. It is floppy, the cover art is super stunning, and it comes with a fully colored frontispiece by Jennifer Bruce. And also, a fully colored map by the author himself. So yeah, this is a beautiful looking paperback, and I heard Indian readers and reviewers who read my reviews or watch my YouTube channel convince the author and publisher to send me a copy, and I just want to say thank you so much to all of you, because not only Sons of Darkness has become one of my favorite books of all time, but it is also a gorgeously produced paperback. So to the publisher, Lead Start, if you're watching this, maybe it's time to invest in a hardcover, because this is too beautiful and too good to be left as a paperback. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my review for Sons of Darkness by Gourav Mohanty. I urge you to read this as soon as possible. It is absolutely amazing and you can thank me later. Sons of Darkness will definitely be the best fantasy debut of 2022 for me. I don't think I will find a better debut than this one this year. So yeah, do let me know whether Sons of Darkness interests you or not, or whether you have read the book or not. If you have read the book, what do you think about it? As always, thank you so much for watching and thank you for your support. Bye bye. Lastly, I want to say thank you so much once again to all my patrons and my new bibliomancer, Lana.